Well, along with seeding going strong, it's also mining week in Saskatchewan. And gosh, how much do we talk on this show about mining? There's always lots to talk about. Uranium demand, for example, continues to rise as countries are needing that sort of guaranteed energy production. AI data centers pushing towards nuclear development. There's lots there. In northern Saskatchewan, that shift is creating new momentum for exploration and development in a region that I would suggest has one of the longest mining histories in the province. And one company is looking to capitalize on that opportunity. Triton Uranium has announced the start of a development work at its Atlas project near Uranium City. The project focused on a lower cost open pit model that the company says could bring domestic uranium supply to a market more quickly than traditional developments. I'm happy to have Scott Evans, who is the president of Triton Uranium, joining me in studio today. Scott, thanks so much for being here.
Happy to be here.
So your background, you and I were just chatting off air. You were a car salesman. You owned a car dealership, correct?
Correct.
How did you get into uranium mining? How did that transition happen?
Well, a friend of mine from Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan, where I am from, he has been very successful in the mining industry, getting projects off the ground. And I started taking interest in some of these mining projects, prior to the 2000s. And so I've kind of been around the mining stuff for about 30 years, and I understand how it works and what it takes to make things happen. And, most projects in the mining world are all for naught. And my partner has a track record of bringing credible projects to the surface, and we feel as though this is a very credible one that we want to work, and we could create some value here for the people of Saskatchewan.
I was on your website last night learning about the Atlas project. This is a pretty exciting project. Uranium City, which has, it's got the name in it, right? Uranium City. But it kind of became a ghost town for a number of years. So why was that the right area for this project?
Well, we feel as though when Uranium City was shut down in 1982, Uranium City never ran out of resources. Basically, the price of it went soft after the 3 Mile Island disaster in Pennsylvania. And, a lot of the reactors and whatnot were shut in. So the supply ended up, being the same, and the demand ended up going down. So the price softened. And back in the day, most of the projects in Uranium City were owned by Eldorado Nuclear, which was a government crown corporation. And for about 3 years, they mined up there at a loss, hoping the price of uranium would recover, and it did not. So they basically shut the place down. And they shut it down not because it ran out of uranium, but because the price went soft and it wasn't economically viable.
Mm-hmm. So when you look at breathing new life into a community like Uranium City, it's been essentially shut down for a number of years. Is it a start from scratch? Like any of the infrastructure that would have been used years ago still helpful today at all?
Absolutely it is. And that's part of the beauty of this project and why my partner picked it up and why I got involved with it is a lot of these uranium projects are long drawn out affairs. They can take anywhere between, 15 and 25 years, to become a mine, from first discovery. And when we talk about the nuclear renaissance that's going on here, they've mandated that the world wants to triple the amount of nuclear reactors here in the next 20 years. Well, we would need to triple the supply of uranium in the next 20 years. And based on how long it takes to build a mine, it's going to be relatively difficult. And part of that problem is infrastructure. Uranium City still retains all of its infrastructure. Right on the border of our property, we have an airstrip that's usable. We have roads running through our property and power lines. So if you can start out a project with infrastructure, you're years and years ahead of the game. And that's why we like the project that we have.
What about regulations? What needed to be done in order to try and get basically the lights back on again up there?
Well, we're not quite at that stage yet. We have the permits. We need to explore the permits. We need to prove that there's something there that remains that's economically viable, which we think that there will be. And then from there, we would have to, basically apply for the permits to get, the lights turned back on again type thing. But we have a hard time believing that we couldn't get permits for uranium in Uranium City.
Scott Evans is my guest. He is the president of Triton Uranium. So I know Triton is focused on a low-cost open pit approach compared to deeper uranium projects that we see in other parts of the province. Explain how that works and why that's the right approach in this part of the province.
Well, when you're talking about the deep targets, those are very rich targets, but there's a lot of engineering that becomes, into play when you're trying to, develop those projects. The Cigar Lake project, just as an example, world's, richest mine, which is owned by Cameco, and it took 25 years plus to bring that thing into production, basically because, there was water coming into the mine shaft. They ended up having to freeze the ground below the Earth's surface. There's a lot of challenges, in doing so to bring those big deposits to surface. And there's a lot of cost involved in doing that, and upfront cost. With an open pit, we're hoping to be, if we can make all the numbers work, a low-cost producer where we could ramp up or scale back production as the market demand is there or not there. And I think that will appeal to potentially a future partner or a buyer of our project, how accessible the uranium is. There's not really any open pit uranium projects out there. They're usually pretty complex for recovery. So we think that we might have a real gem here.
Is that that design, that open pit design you talk about, it's more cost effective? Is it also, I'm guessing it has to be, from a timeline perspective, must be quicker as well?
Absolutely. We've gotten into this, and we're not interested in the 15 to 25 year program on this project. We're trying to get this thing proved up here in the next couple of years and prove economics, and get it into the hands of somebody that wants to develop this. And namely, we're looking at some kind of an American company, because the Americans are, really short on uranium, in their own backyard to pull off the nuclear renaissance that they're trying to execute. So we think that they would be happy having an American company potentially own this type of deposit here.
It's amazing to me. I was actually watching this video, as I mentioned, on your website, but it's amazing to me watching on the video talked about how 6 to 10 grams of uranium, so just a little pellet, can do the work that 150 gallons of oil, for example, or 1 ton of coal can do. So there's no doubt there's power there. There's energy there, right? It's just a matter of, so it doesn't feel to me, we saw the market soften, as you talked about, in 1982, that ultimately led to that community being basically shut down. I don't feel like that's on the horizon for uranium anytime soon, with the global demand for energy and that kind of secure base load power that every jurisdiction is looking for now, just because of the demand.
Absolutely. Uranium over the course of time has been in and out of favor. Uranium was gaining traction in the late 2000s, and we had a real price spike, and we were looking towards uranium again. And then the Fukushima disaster happened in Japan, and then that really, put a chill back onto the uranium and the nuclear program. And here we sit here in 2026, and we've come to the conclusion that wind and solar are not going to cut the mustard for our long-term power needs. And if we're going to, have green or low carbon power, it's going to have to come from nuclear. And I think we're going to see a 20-year here minimum bull run here on uranium to build out the reactors that the globe is talking about. And power demand, from what we see, is going to increase electricity 150% here in the next 30 years. And we want to be part of that.
Scott Evans is my guest. He's the president of Triton Uranium. There's a lot of talk about, of course, Canada needing more domestic critical minerals. I feel like uranium, along with potash in this province, are right near the top of that list, and something that we have in abundance. Is uranium the focus of your work? Do you have any other minerals that are on your horizon?
Uranium is definitely the focus of our work, in the sense that should be the flagship metal that carries the economics of the project. We have also seen other metals that are associated with the uranium. We've seen rare earths in higher concentrations. There's some scandium there. There's even some gold. Back in the day when they were mining Uranium City, the focus was on uranium, and that's what they hauled out of there, and that's it. And when we go in and we explore on this property and we figure out the economics, it's going to be probably based on a full suite of recoverable metals, not just uranium.
There's lots going on right now. Uranium. I've had conversations on this program with Tim Getzel from Cameco, and he said, 10 years ago, uranium was, for many people, a swear word. You couldn't get politicians to utter the word. Now it's become not only commonplace, but it's very much desired if this transition to nuclear is happening. So how competitive is the market? Like, we are hearing about different mining operations and expansions in Saskatchewan. What is that like for a company like yours to come into the market and kind of carve out your piece of this future of energy production?
Well, we see that they want to have 3 times the reactors that they do now within the next 20 years, which is going to put a serious strain on the supply chains in uranium, and they're projecting a price spike to 150, maybe even as far as $200 per pound of uranium. And if that goes through, I mean, that's only going to help the economics of this project and any other project. But the ultimate thing when it comes to mining is when somebody is looking to invest in a project, it needs to come from a stable mining jurisdiction. And Saskatchewan is ranked right at the top here in the world for most stable mining jurisdictions to invest in. And we think that will help attract, a future suitor to take this project to the next stage.
Let's talk a little bit about timelines. What are the timelines for the project? You talked about this is in its early stages, but walk us through where this is headed.
We've raised some money here privately through friends and family to the tune of about $16 million. The next stage here is we want to get this company public, probably in some U.S. listing, with a U.S. listing within the next probably 8 months. Within the next year, we're planning drilling and doing some geophysics on the property, which is going to commence here within the next month. Get that stuff to the lab, see what we got, and from there we want to start, proving economics. We know that we have uranium on that property. We have historical results on this project. There's over 1,700 previous drill holes and 18,000 core samples that have been sent to the lab. So we have lots of data. We know there's uranium there. So then in year 2, we want to prove out the economics and basically put this thing on a silver platter to either merge up with a bigger player or potentially us to be taken out.
I think about the logistics of this, and labor comes to mind. Is there, and I realize that's a little ways down the road, but is there a labor market to be able to actually put this into operational momentum?
Well, back in the day, there was over 3,000 people that lived in Uranium City. They had hospitals, nursing homes. They even had a car dealership there back in the day. And it was quite a thriving little community. And we think that we can bring that back to life if we can prove the economics on this project. There's lots of people still living up north looking for jobs. We don't think that we would have an issue finding people to work it.
Good stuff. Well, this has been a good chat, Scott. Congrats on the momentum, and we will watch this project carefully and hopefully have you back to chat about where you're at as you take the steps forward.
Sounds good. We look forward to moving this to the next stage.
Good stuff. Scott Evans, my guest, president of Triton Uranium. Again, they have got this Atlas project going up at Uranium City, and we will, as I mentioned, continue to follow this along with all of the other great mining projects that are happening in our province, which, by the way, I mentioned off the start, it is mining week in Saskatchewan this week as well.